a little bit of background about me. I am originally an editor, and then post-production supervisor, technical producer, and then executive producer. I am jobbing in the industry as well as consulting with major studios and facilities, to the point that I can announce today that if you're in the international arena, and specifically if you're out of the United Kingdom, you probably want to look for an announcement about me in the following weeks. If you have something that's Irish biased or can be placed in Ireland, definitely talk to me later on, because there's some great news coming. And on that, it's part of why I enjoy talking at these conferences, because, you know, yesterday I spoke about taking trauma and reframing it to creativity and success. This is kind of an extension of that, in that the topic I wish to call was like making it up as we go along, which is where my creativity comes from. I tell people I'm not your classical creative. Okay, people will come to me and talk to me and say, we've got this concept, we have this idea, we wish to go from A to B, or we wish to go from A to B via Z or Z. How do we do that? And for me, I've been very, very fortunate to ride the creative technology wave since the late 80s all the way through to now, in that I have this sheer belief and conviction, and this is where my creativity comes from, in if I don't know how to do it, I will certainly find out a way to do it. I'm not afraid to admit when I don't know something, but also I'm not afraid to ask questions. And in this asking questions of other creatives and knowledge sharing and bringing other people up with me, we make it up as we go along. Back in 1989, nonlinear technology was something that was happening. The ability to compress and disseminate video in a digital way was possible. And I was fortunate enough to share an office with someone who went on to be part of the QuickTime team at Apple. And there was this CD called an Apple developer CD that was called Gorillas in the Mist. And it was then called Gorillas in the Disk. And what we'd got on there was what became nascent QuickTime. But none of us knew what to do, really knew how to manipulate it. And I shared this office with this guy who wrote this crossfade plugin for QuickTime. And we just sat down and we didn't know really what we were going to do. So we just threw things at the wall and saw what stuck. And sometimes, you get this horrible result. Sometimes it was a good result. And it really was we just made it up. We're going, okay, well, we're going to do this. And then moving on from that, when sort of like Avid first came out, and then Lightworks and Media 100 and Dvision, again, it was a case of, all right, we have this technology concept. How do we take this technology concept into another realm? And I got a lot of work in the beginning of the 90s in the sort of what we called multimedia arena. And it really was a case of, hey, I want to do this point of information thing, but I want to present it in a different way. So I was going, okay, there's these technology cards that people really don't know what to do with. If we can construct things and be savvy about how we're delivering it, we can be very creative with the virtually instantaneous level of delivery. So I was messing about with that. I was also using these cards for animation purposes. So back in the old day when you were doing CG, you'd render it out and then you drop it to a frame buffer and then spit that frame buffer image to tape. And there'd be a lot of times when the tape would get chewed up or the tape machine would fail overnight. You'd have to like sort of set it going and cross your fingers and pray that it would still work. I ended up working with a group of people who got this frame buffer card that could offload to a hard disk. And I was like, okay, that's great. How about if we then put this into a networking environment and then we network different things dropping it to this card? And again, we had no idea what we were doing. we didn't know if it was a concept or not, you know, and dropping images to a card, if one machine on your network render farm was slower than the other, the images would get out of sequence. So you'd still have to probably hop back to tape to splice them back in. So one of the ways I describe myself is I don't think out of the box. I probably lost the box about 2 years ago. I have no idea where the box is. So when you come to me with a concept, I go, okay, then are there any rules involved here? Because if there aren't rules, I'm going to make it up as I go along. So with this concept of trying to go, hey, how can we get image sequences in the correct order onto these frame buffer cards and onto disk without having an additional messing around? I just thought, well, why don't we just take this cup as a place where I'm going to drop all my frames. I will then get them ordered in stacks of 10 and then transfer the 10 to the frame buffer and to the card and keep on doing it like that. So I would effectively have like a little bucket or like a system, if you think. I'd fill my system to a certain point, see them in order, and then drop it onto the technology. And that was a huge sea change for us in network rendering. You know, it was just the fact that I didn't come at it from a technical perspective. I was just like, how can I best make this less painful for people? And again, I just made it up. I thought, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Whiteboarded it. Everyone's like, yeah, well, this hasn't been done before. And I'm going, believe me, it will work. And here in America, I can tell you that I slide not so much on bullshit, more on the fact that I have an English accent. And if you get an English person into a room with C-level execs or engineers, they will generally shut up when an English accent starts talking. You know, and again, even though I am a transgender individual, the fact that I can walk in, whiteboard with the best of them, and have an English accent, I can generally get my concepts forward. So we were doing this with frame buffers and that sort of thing. I then got approached by a music show in the UK, and we were going to do this. I was approached to help them design a system in which we could use rapid editing and nonlinear systems to go straight to air. Now, the software and the technology was not up to it. But what we did find is that if we put a playlist together, just like literally straight list of time codes in a playlist, and cut from one to the other, we knew that we could jump across the disks within 1/25th of a second. We could jump to another clip pretty quickly. So what we did, we constructed a whole music show purely on cuts. And then the creative element around it was, they thought, well, if we're coming in and out of music stabs, you know, it's pretty hard to get that sort of crossover niceness. But what if we put interstitials and pointers between each of the clips? So we constructed this playlist of music, a stab, music, another stab, and we made it a thematic element. Again, never been done before. We just completely made it up, and it worked. It worked so well that on a Saturday morning, when I was doing the show, on a Saturday morning, we'd have parts 1 and 2 of a 1-hour program sort of laid down. And if we wanted to, we could reorganize the third part with the top 10 if there'd been any major release or music update during the night. Totally revolutionary. People, you know, the engineers at ITV, when they found out what we were doing, they called us mad. They said we were crazy. And there was no way we should ever be allowed to do this in 1996. But we did. And the real proof of the pudding, for want of a better phrase, of just making it up as you go along, is, unfortunately, there were 2 incidents in 1997. There was the passing of Michael Hutchence from NXS, and there was also the death of Lady Diana. And in both of those instances, on that Saturday morning, when the news came in over the news wires, we were able to change and update dynamically our show as though we were live. Although it was like pre-edited, we treated it as live. I was cueing dynamic graphics over the top. So we were able to actually respond and change our show on the fly, which has just been huge. You know, the fact that this little music show in the UK on a Saturday morning was able to do this, made a paradigm shift into news and everything else on how to structure a show. But again, we did it. We just did it. We were just crazy mavericks that thought, we don't have a lot of money. We've got this technology. Let's see how far we can push it. And that's what I talk about by making it up as we go along. You should never, ever be constrained by what has gone before. Definitely what you're told you can't do. And then what you can potentially do if you just throw away the rule book and believe in what you're doing. Another one, at the same time, as not as though we weren't doing enough innovative stuff out of a basement in Fulham, we also had a 17-week live, truly live, children's TV show. And it sat in that slot, sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock sort of window on Saturday morning. And having done all this stuff with messing about with playlists, I was approached and they said, hey, do you want to work on a live animated TV show? We're going to have an animated lip sync dragon with a second character, fully animated, with a chroma key, with over the shoulder shots, well, with fact 3 camera angles and a 4th safety camera that I was running. Are you in? And I'm like, okay then. They said, yeah, we've got 5 weeks to get this to air. And we did it. This is way before they did the sort of Fox did the sort of phone in with Homer Simpson. We were doing this in 1997, and we were just a group of individuals having fun in a basement, going, okay, then what commissioner out there would commission this? And someone bought it, and we had 5 weeks to make it happen. Not only did we hit the deadline, but I'm dating myself, we had the Backstreet Boys in live. And if you want to do a search for this, it's on YouTube. You can search for Backstreet Boys Tricky, TRICKY, Tricky interview ITV, and you will see this live interview we did with the Backstreet Boys. They were talking to an animated dragon, and because it was an animated dragon and it's children's TV, we could not be rude, but we could definitely be foul. And you've got this animated dragon asking these awkward questions, and these poor pop stars looking very confused, and we're just dying with laughter in the gallery because no one had ever done this before. No one ever like pushed the envelope of what could be said and acted, and and then just seeing the real-time reactions to people when they are talking to this animated dragon. It was hilarious, But again, because it was not low-rent TV, but it was like economy TV, we were able to throw away the rules, make it up as we go along, and push the creativity of what could be done further than the constraints that were given to us at the time. And following on from that, I did some stuff on Cartoon Network where we had an interactive Johnny Bravo, which was hilarious. I had Johnny Bravo in an edit bay in Fulham with me, doing this whole thing and trying to get Johnny Bravo live in animation on TV to say Leicester. He was like, Lisa Sturshire, we'd put the words up and we go, oh yeah, how about going, oh yeah, Johnny, there's someone calling from Worcester. And he goes, hi, there's caller from Worcester. Unbelievably hilarious. We had fun with it. But again, we just made it up. We just did it. There was no reason for us not to do it. And it worked. So summing up, I'm coming up to my 20 minutes. So summing up, you should not ever be constrained by the fact that you don't know how to do something. There is always someone out there, or there's someone you can talk to or discuss it with. And if you don't, just look at what's available and have fun. Just have fun with it. And that's what I do as a technical creative. I bring no rules, no preconceived ideas, no preconceived concepts. I just take what I think could be fun and run with it. I hope you can do the same. I'm ready for questions if you've got any. And then there's a deathly silence.
Not so much a question, but a comment. I mean, so much is made about younger generations being like the tech wizards, but it's everybody who not only like developed it, but the users who figured out what can be done with it that I give so much credit to. And hearing this story just reinforces that belief that, I mean, when I was in college in the 90s, we had computer labs, and every semester we got new computers. And every semester you had to figure out how to type a paper on a computer.
Hmm.
Every semester was different. And what you've experienced and how you handled it was just like that, but like times 1,000. So it's really exciting to hear these stories, to figure out just to hear testament to how you approached it, how you solved these problems, what you did with it that other people hadn't figured out yet. So I
Oh
really
yeah, yeah.
appreciate hearing all
Oh
of
no.
this.
Yeah, and the other thing is I'll tell you the technology doesn't need to be new. I have all sorts of different technology dotted around me. If I could, I won't show you what my lab here looks like. It's a complete mess. You go, oh my god, I haven't seen one of those in 25 years. But the thing is you don't have to be cutting edge technology to make something unbelievably creative. And also one of the benefits that I've got, I'm not wishing to date myself again, but I come from the analog universe. I came from film editing, cutting and splicing with tape and sticky tape and set mag. I take all those principles that I know about constructing and I put it out into whatever I'm doing. The best thing that I was ever taught in production when I started editing as an assistant was they'd say opticals are really expensive. Okay, so an optical would be a fade, a graphic, a lower third, a caption, any of that. So I was always told, if you can't resolve it, you dissolve it. If you get into trouble, you fade to black. And if you're truly screwed, you bring up a title, because they were last ports of call. So any job I approach, be it CG, AR, VR, gaming, you try and make the story work on simple cuts and simple narrative structure that does not confuse people. Because if you're taking them on that journey, you're halfway there. And if you can rely on the simplicity, you can make the simplicity look way beyond what people are expecting. You can trick the eye and the ear very quickly.
Great. And then, Kerry, it looks like we got a question from Jay.
So
Hi, Joe.
more of a comment. I really like your statement of, because I agree with it 100%. So therefore I really like it. If you don't, it's okay to not know something. So ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to not know everything.
Yeah.
And in my former career, I would go to people who had been in my former career for years, and I would say, I'm seeing this particular issue, and what did you do to fix it? And they never had they had no answers. They didn't even investigate the problem to try to fix it. And when you're talking about a baby being able to breastfeed, because I was a lactation consultant, if the baby can't breastfeed, why aren't you looking for the problem to figure out how you can fix it? And so, like you, I was like, well, I'll figure it out myself. And so I made it up as I went along and ended up doing a whole bunch of things I never thought I would ever do. But I'm finding it really nice to now put that back into what I'm doing now, because I have since retired from that career. And I'm fully art, photography, drawing, digital art, hand art, whatever, anything art and creative that doesn't involve the life and death or potential death of another human, I'm all for.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't really thought about it in that perspective that you said, make it up as you go.
Well, you see, I'm full of all these old school adages, like,
Mm-hmm.
with if you can't resolve it, dissolve it. Another thing I was told when I was a UPM, unit production manager and line producer, was the director would come to me and he says, don't give me problems, give me solutions.
Mm-hmm.
If something's going wrong, I don't need to know the problem. I just want to hear the solution you found. So, which is awesome. Locations would fall through, talent wouldn't be available at a certain time. I'd walk up and I'd go, hey, Andrew, we that thing, we're going to do something way better. We're going to go over here. We're doing this. And you just look at me and go, you're doing that solution shit, aren't you? But people need to hear it. It's like, you just need to be open to the unexpected, and if you can, keep something in your back pocket. But it is a case of not think of something as an absolute stop or end. Just move on. And it's interesting, in this creative world, quite often we're not saving lives. We're not brain surgeons. Okay. It's only TV, it's only film, it's only a podcast, it's only a YouTube video. And some people lose sight of that, but I never do. It's like, okay, then if it's gone totally off the deep end, how can I now flip this for you to make it enjoyable, that even this journey falls apart, we're still enjoying the journey. And hopefully we bring the viewers with us.
Well, and bringing in your topic from yesterday, of reframing things, that really plays so much into this topic today.
Yeah.
As it really does. And so I really appreciate the insights, because it's helping me. I mean, I'm old school. I'm analog. I'm 57. I've been the party line, telephone, dial up. I get all of that. But sometimes it's nice to hear it from somebody of my generation who's like, "Oh yeah, you're okay. Just remember the good old days. It's okay. Make it up as you go along. It's all good." So thank you.
Yeah. No. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Great. Yeah, it looks like David has one. If it's quick, we are at time.
Oh, actually, Maxim said I could run over a bit if there are a few questions.
Perfect. Sure.
It's going to be really quick. First of all, thanks for the speech. And probably I make up as I go for my whole life. So probably I will keep doing the same with your philosophy on the back of my head. The question is right now, in the story you told us, probably there weren't millions of professionals all over the world that could be able to do what you did. Right now, the market is really overcrowded, but I still have the feeling that sometimes I can really make it up things for real. I just have to convince people that I could do it. Any advice on that?
Yeah. So the thing is, the market is very crowded. There are a lot of so-called experts and a lot of so-called influencers and disruptors and things like that. Okay, the real, not wishing to toot my own horn for a second, a few years back, all the platforms were launching major streaming changes and so forth. And I was being called up by recruiters, and the same old faces were turning up for the interviews. And there's one interview I did with a major company, and they sat there and they started to try and lowball me and saying, "Oh no, we can't afford you." And I said, well, for a fact, I know that the 5 other people that you can potentially interview, 2 are at Google, one of them's at Netflix, and the other one's halfway up a mountain. So you're pretty much stuck with me. I just called it out for the ballsiness that it was. And I said, and you're being driven to me because you're going to get something different to all the other people that claim they can do it. I'm not saying that it's going to work brilliantly, but my differentiator for all of you is I don't mind taking chances. I don't mind putting my name on the line or my head on the block and going, yeah, the buck will stop here, but let's try this. We got 3 weeks. That's 2 weeks more than I normally have. And that is the way you pitch it. Is not, oh yeah, I could potentially do it. Just say, okay, you give me this, I can tell you, I will give you a value proposition, a pitch that will blow your socks off, and let's do it, because it's different. It's different to all the other things you're going to hear.